Great. Thanks, Casey, for joining this time. And I know it is morning, I believe. A very good morning. And to all the viewers and folks, here is Casey. I'm a good friend, and we worked quite a bit when he is in India, and then he moved on to New York now. And then he has a great deep insight into techno-functional experience in cloud and related technologies. I'll let, rather than like me introducing more about him, I'll let speak about him and his experience, etc. So welcome, Casey, and yeah, tell me
Thanks,
about your
Arvind.
experience. Yeah.
Thanks, Arvind. Good morning, good evening, and good night, everyone who are about to sleep. The point. So myself, Krishna Chaitanya, Casey. So I kind of had a wide variety of experience. I started my career as a software engineer, moved to product building products, worked a bit in consulting, and most of my career is into tech sales, which is primarily into pre-sales and and being a customer. I mean, kind of person who actually helps the sales teams mostly. And my last stint before I actually moved to New York is being as a program manager for handling startup ecosystem in India for Google. Before that, I worked in Microsoft. Before that, it's IBM, Thomson Reuters, IBM, and Infosys. So moved a lot, but worked in amazing companies, amazing teams so far. Gained quite a lot of experience at the same time. Worked with some amazing people around the industry. So that's what who I am.
Great. I think it's a lot of interesting journey about how you. I think you worked also at Microsoft and before joining Google. So can you briefly explain about not just about the company, but when you said that I worked in tech sales, or like the kind of area that you work in, what sort of things happen there, like, and what do you do daily in regular as a technologist?
Sure, Arvind. So yeah, that's a good point. This is purely my so these are my experiences which I'm talking about. Yes. So most of my, if you look at most of my career or most of my work experience, it's mostly into uh, tech sales. So it has wide variety of flavors. It started with actually helping the marketing companies around the world to fend their technical questions to their partners. That's my kind of first actual sales experience, rather than I'm talking about not delivery. So which is like product building and serving it to the customers, which is post sales. So having from there, I switched it. First ever tech sales experience is helping Microsoft marketing teams, especially in the entire APAC region, to on technology, like questions they used to get from partners, customers, so that I'll be the one hand person sitting in India who's helping them, answering them questions and taking calls. So from there, I moved as a person who directly works with sales and works with sales teams in India. So that's when I mean the name they gave it as Cloud Solution Architect for the sales teams. Eventually moved to Google for the kind of similar role, but eventually took up program manager role and led startup programs, which is also I don't say it is a salesy role, but it's more like helping startups to understand Google Cloud and also realize their potential, also help them how they can actually build products with the best of what Google actually can provide. So there was this time where I have to decide whether I have to whether I have to go into deep down into technical radar, or should I be like handling program management. So that's when the decision I kind of actually opted for being more technical rather than program manager. That's a primary that's a primary lever and the reason why I actually had to take up specialist customer engineer role in New York, because one, obviously it helps me personally to get in touch with technology again back to the fullest form. And second, it also helps me, like right now I'm working with enterprise customers, so it also helps me to expand my horizon in terms of working with different wide variety of customers, and also learn from them and help them on Google Cloud.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not planned, by the way. If you ask me, Casey, did you plan all this? No, I haven't planned all this. A lot, most of them, at the same time, it's not sheer coincidence. It's more like half plan and half opportunities which kind of opened up. I remember, I think 2009 around. I think the first time I heard about cloud technologies, that was like very, very, very early stage. That was the time I think Azure, Microsoft Azure used to have a portal where they used to where we used to can upload a CSPKC file and CS config file. That's just one portal, and that's when I started actually knowing about cloud technologies, working on it, and yeah, I think it was handy back then. The interest of me trying to learn something which is always new. By the way, I learned Silverlight also. I don't know how many of you know Silverlight. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of actually poked my head around a lot of technologies. Which, by the way, I was a Windows app developer. You might actually think now a lot of technologies which I used are defunct, so no one is using them right now. I kind of had a couple of phone apps which I used to, which were there until the App Store was alive. Um, but yeah, some of them, some technologies dead, some of them are still alive, some of them became very, very big. So one such technology which fortunately became so big is cloud technologies, which I'm still continuing and learning.
Yeah. So interesting, Casey. I think like throughout your experience, you have gone through multiple stages, right? You might have seen trends going on around. Like sometimes it's like security, data centers, and something like that. And again, sometimes it's just what you are working and repackaged and retold in a different format. Like earlier, probably it is data centers, but now it is managed by somebody else. It's called cloud. And then like after sometimes. Some service that you build in house, and then it's now called software as a service, and it's called SaaS. So how did you feel about all of this, like when you're really working all of this, talking to people, and like fellow developers and users, etc., the trend that you noticed?
It's tough actually. So speaking to fellow developers and teams, it's tough because I sometimes felt that I was always in a place where people never used to understand what I'm doing. I think back when I still remember very, very, very clearly that on the day Windows 10 was released, I was in a retail shop actually demoing Windows 10 features. Sorry, Windows 8, not 10. Windows 8 features to the new customers. So it was like a kind of actually, uh, uh, how do I say, a marketing enablement thing, which they asked for volunteers to join. And I said, yeah, I mean, I wanted to. And if you search on my YouTube, the first ever video I uploaded is Windows 8 connected to my CPU connected to my TV, actually running Windows 8. So I kind of actually, I think, uploaded that 8 years back now, 6 or 7 years back. So it's still, the video still exists. So point is, when you're doing all this, it's kind of very tough to make people understand what you're trying to do. It's constant struggle of. I think a lot of people like you also understand this and resonate with me. It's easy that we know a lot of things, but when we convey that to users, it's either we are ahead of our time when we are speaking to them, or we'll be late to them when we are really trying to understand and speak to them. So the timing is always right. So for me, out of all the technologies I worked with, the timing which is exactly right is cloud technologies, and rest of them are way ahead or way late. So even in cloud, I see that, as you said, some of the paradigms like SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. When I started, it's PaaS actually, but how many really know what is PaaS? Like, and if you know, like App Engine, which Google started long, long, long ago, no one knows really back then what is PaaS services all about. So then back then when I started, it's IaaS all around. So everyone used to talk about IaaS and related technologies. So for me, explaining them to a lot of peers, and I mean my industry peers I used to have friends with and work with. It's kind of tough. At the same time, it's by the way, it's tough to explain my father also, like what your role looks like. I was like, okay, let me try to explain you what I do, and he'll be like, oh, okay, I don't understand all this. So all he used to ask me was whether I have a job or not. So that's how the discussion used to go. But now I think maturity levels are so good that given the amount of time and money people are putting into explaining these technologies, everyone now know, like Udemy, EDX, Coursera. There are enough places where you can understand what you're. So our lives are easy actually. To be frank, compared to where we started, I think right now our lives are way easier. You all you can just say is, hey, this is the documentation. Go ahead and read and understand yourself, and you don't need to teach. So I remember the pre-sales days. I kind of used to teach a lot of things to a lot of customers, and I used to do a lot of EVC sessions. Primary point is to educate what's cloud and what the features are. Today, you don't need to do all.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's where we are. We are in a good shape right now.
Yeah. So I want to ask a question specifically on, like, when you talk about, you also worked in the startups arena a lot, and startup community, working with multiple, I don't know whether you call them accelerators, or there are incubators or several people, right? What is the biggest learning as a person that I know you enjoyed a lot. I know that we had a lot of events that we both went and spoke to several people, different distant places, etc. But at that point of time, as a program manager, also being back of the mind as a technologist, doing all of this, like, how did you feel, and like what are the things that you have learned there?
No, my priorities used to change. So when I have a hat of a program manager was especially for startups. Uh, Technology is always important, but at the same time, I need to really worry about the economics and dynamics of how startups would adopt the technology. That used to be complete different radar. Like I should appreciate the fact that startups also taught me a lot. Like the ecosystem also taught me a lot in terms of how to think ourselves. Sometimes because I used to work with a lot of enterprise customers and SMB customers who kind of actually start with a discussion, show me the value, and let's talk about the pricing later, or they're okay to the pricing to some extent. Only then they actually used to come to us to even discuss. Whereas startups, it's completely different discussion altogether. So for me, I know I kind of always used to tell a startup that it's always good to optimize your workloads as much as possible or as good as possible, but also understand whether you can actually pay your bills, and you can sustain, you can stay afloat after doing all the technology advancements you wanted to do. It's like and I saw a lot of startup founders amazing, and they're passionate to do a lot of things. But the point is, obviously, they're limited with not from the vision, but it's more from the amount of money and time they can actually spend on something. So the model I used to work with startups is like iterate yourself. Like first push out what you can. Maybe use SaaS services, PaaS services. Push it or fast whatever function as a service. Just make sure that you come out with the bare bone product to demo yourself, and then iterate it to make it much more resilient, or make it better, like to take the main functionality, push it out. So this is how I used to discuss, and my core agenda is to help a lot of content which Google has, which is um, what's Google Cloud, what we're doing, because I think back then when I started, again, Google Cloud is also very new in terms of actually penetrating into startup world. So it's a challenge for me to make them understand why Google Cloud, what's Google Cloud. At the same time, it's a good challenge to have, by the way, to kind of explain all these things. So, and obviously how we try and how we partner with Elasticsearch, you know this very well. So so we kind of has to have a common narrative of how the partner ecosystem works, and
Hmm.
all this plethora of things comes as handy to the startups when they're trying something new out of their first experience. yeah, that's what I kind of used to do, and kind of, yeah. I feel like when I retrospectively look back, I kind of actually achieved what I want from the ecosystem, where now a lot of startups were benefited, a lot of startups actually got what they want, and I still am in touch with hundreds of them at this point. So it's a good journey for so far.
Yeah, so but you also made a good point here, like talking about runway and like making yourself sustainable, which is very, very important at this point of time for any startup or any business. In fact, actually, any business. So I think your thoughts even then were like in a way very aligned to what you want to say. And being, I mean, working at a cloud company, even then you are trying to tell that in a way that okay, you need to be sustainable. You need to consume services that are more reliable or helps you deliver the product, and also like helps you pay the bills. It's like an interesting thing generally. So that is
Yeah,
there.
I mean, everyone have accessibility to cloud now. It's like you're taken for granted now. How you use it and how you make sure that you run on it is important.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But then you also mentioned about SaaS, Casey. I think like uh, I know that again, talking from the first question that you answered, that you have seen a lot in the cloud and how the industry and all these things have penetrated. Now there's a lot of push from cloud services actually. You see, not just cloud platforms having cloud services, but someone like an open source company having a cloud service. And what do you see in SaaS in general? Like, why do you generally recommend SaaS, or what is there in SaaS as such? um yeah, your experience again. Yeah.
No, I think see cloud in general. Forget about just pause for a moment. What is SaaS? Cloud is all about, like, I'll give you a backstory, like an amazing backstory, which I always remember, and how this is how I learned cloud actually. Back then, there was in Chicago, when there is no power. The factories, by the way, when you wanted to have power for yourself, factories used to have a bunker where people used to come down and uh, pedal to get electricity. So that's how the electricity used to, like, for example, you're running manufacturing unit where you want electricity to it. So there is always a shift where people used to come to the bunker of a factory, and pedal the bicycles, and that's how you get electricity. And the problem with this kind of model, I tell you, is these guys are not really into manufacturing of electricity. So their core business is actually building something new for, like, customer, like manufacturing something new. So that's where their R&D, that's where their expertise is going towards, actually speaking. But what they're doing is peddling and generating electricity, which is of no use to them.
Correct.
So this is, I mean, take that analogy and fast forward few days or few years down the lane. There came Chicago Power Corporation, and they said, hey, why the hell are you guys doing? Maybe let me do that, because I'm very good at actually this. I have these many patents, I have this much R&D, I can actually produce electricity with less loss, and you don't need to worry about you building that on your bunk. So just give me the way, I'll give you a transformer which actually submits whatever the power you want, and you pay for the kind of actually relationship I used to have with you, like how much electricity you can consume. So they put some meters and they say, hey, how this, let's do this. And that's how fast forward today at this point when you are talking to me, power is taken for granted. All you just do is take a card, put it in your socket, and all you get is like electricity, right? Like, no one is
Mhm.
asking you to do anything, something fancy. Like, you expect electricity to be there when you move to a house, and you switch on, you pay, you switch off, you don't pay, the meter always runs.
Yes.
Exactly what actually cloud is all about. Everyone used to build their own data centers, run there, which is not their core job. But that's what essentially, if you wanted to survive in the industry, because technology is almost integral part of everything. Like how electricity became a normal job, normal thing for every household, to the enterprise, to the factories. It's the same way. Without technology, you cannot still live without it. You have bookkeeping system, you have employee management systems, you have HRMS. Uh, so it's integral part. Now, buying a software and running is also not a job. It's like moving to the Chicago corporation. Some companies, like traditional companies like Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, are in a really good place where they've been running these data centers all over the world for a long time. Like, you don't know that. That's it. Imagine how you search something, say Aravind on YouTube, on Google, giving you a result instantaneously. You uploading something right now on one side of the world, like I'm in UK. I'm sorry, I'm in New York and you are in India. We are uploading some data, which is going live on Twitter and YouTube. So imagine the fraction of milliseconds which are being invested in actually taking this through. So the investments are already made. It's not like you are trying to rebuild something new, and this their expertise is doing this.
Hmm.
Now, the same as power corporation, like what power corporations are doing, these companies are doing exactly the same. It's like, I will take care of it, I'll do it, you just need to plug and play. So SaaS is almost like a the last section of where we are, which is like, put your plug and use it for your, like, do your shaving or do your watch your TV, and take it out if you don't want to use it. That's exactly what SaaS is all about. Like, you don't need to worry a lot about the integrities of how to build a software, the UI I mean, it also comes with little I would always say this is, it also comes with certain kind of restrictions where in US my volt is different. In India, it's 220 volt. It's different. So I prepare my electricity so that I have to make sure that my products are manufactured in a different way. SaaS is exactly same. So I have to make sure that my interfaces and how I use the system, it has to be streamlined as per conventions which were set by the companies. If you wanted to go a little more, like, flexibility comes when you go to IAS and pass, and obviously you need to pay more, which is like, I would call it as transformer models. You get
Hmm.
your own transformer, you can arrange your own, if you can customize how the voltage actually changes. Maybe you can actually get a 320 volt for your home, if you can actually go and put some research and build some transformers around it. So the whole point is, that's exactly the same model we are doing. So you and me are in a phase where we are plugging and playing it. That's exactly what we used to do for electricity. I think we are relearning the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting analogy that I've ever heard in the cloud thing. I've heard about pets versus cattle. I've heard about several other analogies, but the power analogy is really resonating in a way that, very appropriate to the SaaS area as well. Because, SaaS is not just really, to me, it's not really new. And I have seen several SaaS related services. In fact, there are quite a few services that we have used in the last 10, 15 years, more than 15 years maybe, when I started using internet. And then like, even it is like a SaaS solution. And like, referring to the same analogy, like the app engine was there from quite some time. And then a lot many people don't know what to do with it at that point of time. But actually, app engine is a PaaS, and it's a powerful PaaS service that you don't need a service. All you need is just a code, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, Gmail. Look at all your email IDs. Forget about anything which is just an email. It's a SaaS service in a way, which is free. So the way we were introduced, all these are different.
correct. You're right. Exactly. So, but then again, another question in the same line is like, when you're talking about cloud technologies, architectures, and all of this, like implementing this, tuning them to your own thing. You can share your experience around, like, or opinion when you're architecting. What do you really look for? What are the questions that you generally ask? Or how do you like synthesize? Okay, this is where it fits. Or I'm asking in an abstract manner. Again, you can take your similar power kind of example and explain anything that you are related to.
Yeah, for me,
Say, suppose, like, if I'm a customer and I say, like, okay, I want to use cloud, and like, talking about the same infrastructure or digital transformation topic that everyone talks about, right? So I have a problem, and then like, I have to fit it into the cloud. And then there are multiple architectures, like, that there are data intensive related architectures. And how do you, like, size or talk about them? And like, how do you tell to customers, like, okay, or people, what is the general guidance?
yeah, again, I have an analogy for this. So it's all about like the t-shirt sizes. So you get small, large, medium, and XL, triple X, or whatever the sizes patterns you have. Typically, that's what you buy. It comes
Correct.
with flexibility. It comes with easiness. These are already in the market. But really, if you ask me, Casey, what is the best way to actually wear a suit or a shirt? It's stitch it.
Hmm.
I don't want you to actually get some double XL and try to figure out how to make sure that it's modified. So the best shirt is all about stitching it to the right measurements. So, but first of all, you need to understand what your measurements are. You take your tape and you say, hey, this is your shoulder, this is your collarbone, this is your breastplate, it is your shirt's hand size. So you kind of take all the measurements, right? So the same way you go to a customer and take his measurements on what is his SLAs and SLOs and company requirements, and what is his pay capacity, like how much he can actually pay for this cloud. And if not, he can run that. What is his run rate and what is his ultimate goal, which is like what he's looking at in the future, because he's investing for the future, not for the present when it comes to cloud. Mostly it's because you end up actually staying there for a really long time, even though you don't want to do that. Uh, uh, so there are a lot of things which are considered. I don't say having open source versus closed source. I don't want to get into those discussions. The reason being, it's all about the requirement. But the point is, we just need to understand what the customer is looking for and what is his capability to run it. So evangelizing his team and trying to make sure that they know what they're trying to do. A lot of things considered. So that's one of the reason, if you see any organization to that extent where the cloud is actually predominantly, even in your organization also, you'll see this pattern. You have a training team who trains, you have a marketing team, you have a developer relations team, you have a sales team, you have a pre-sales, you have delivery teams. So you have this plethora of teams for a reason, because these are like tailored people who are actually taking measurements for the customer in a different way, and making
Hmm.
sure that all their intention is to kind of create a well-made suit for the customer. If not, if one of these teams is not working properly, obviously you'll have a smaller hand and a larger leg size. So it's all about how they come together and create a beautiful design and suit for you. So the first step is to design
Hmm.
a suit for you, for your body language and for your needs, and how much you can pay for your wedding, obviously. So I take all this first, and then go to the drawing board and say, hey, your goal is to become something sort of take an XYZ company who is into actually building, I would call a website like YouTube. Their requirements is latency, obviously, so as minimal as possible. So what is that I can actually help them to do it? Is it a streaming service? Is it like, and obviously latency comes with CDN and network capabilities. How much they can pay for that? So do they need a direct interconnect, or they need a peering to Google network, or they need something sort of. So these are all the steps which I kind of actually. So never take any biases. It's not like you are saying this suit fits for me, so you should also wear it because I know that it's good for you. It's not the way it is.
Correct.
Maybe back 5 years or 10 years, that was the case. It is now everything is custom to the requirement for the user. We kind of actually ask them and understand them, and maybe go with the data in terms of there are different strategies and methodologies for this. Like you call it as like cost and I think in a pre-sales world, there are so many templates and so many ways of actually identifying and capturing a requirement and a deal.
Hmm.
And from there, you kind of actually work on it, or identifying the deal is important. First of all, whether
Hmm.
the deal which you are actually going to work with is really a tangible deal, or it's just more like a conversation. So 80% of the time, I think what I
Qualify.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, qualifying the deal. So 80% of the time, uh, it's very hard to tell where develop ends and sales starts. You are in that world, very well. Like it's kind of hard to say that, like 80, whether customer really needs to build it, or it's more of a developer relation call. Customer is looking for learning something new, because it's, I think we are all interlinked and interviewed in a way that I wanted to learn also. So at the same time, I work for a company, so I kind of actually push my personal word versus the company's requirements. So it's hard to differentiate really I want or company wants.
Hmm.
So most of the way I really work is to take a lot of data and make sure that with no bias, understand what customer needs and what's the end goal where he's going to, and
Hmm.
do what's right for the customer. Sometimes it's good to sell a lot of things, or good to actually showcase a lot of things in our services. I think we as technologists get into the trap of showcasing what we have sometimes, which is not what they need of course. And
Always like solving problem, what value the customer wants value, like they could save some bucks or probably even could solve some problem that is troubling them, serve their customers or something like that. Yeah, I think it's interesting, but I also want to, like, because we are into this sort of techno functional, like somewhere in between kind of conversation. I want to understand, Casey, is like, suppose if I'm a startup and I have a SaaS or some product that is running on some cloud platform, and and then I want to set up a pre-sales team. And what is the thought that I should go into, like, immediately to hire pre-sales engineer? I mean, not about degrees, not about that, but what sort of, like you also spoke about throughout the discussion about demos, learning, and then a lot of these. So, what is your recommendation in a way that way? I mean, like, what is your learning or something that you could share with us to
I would
build
say
it?
I would call it as customer obsession. So do what's right for the customer. I think a lot of things will fall in line, rather than see. Obviously, there is a fine line between where this is an interesting school of thought. I always actually struggle with this. Is should we need to show something new to customer which he don't know, like iPhone or iPad or no, iPod to that extent, uh, also works. And should we need to actually follow what customer needs, also works. So it's in between these two.
Correct.
It's like predicting what customer needs and making sure that you have your product matching that and showcasing that is kind of the whole story around this. So
Hmm.
whatever you build, whatever you learn, whatever you do, it has to fall in between these two.
Hmm.
It's sometimes people say it is timing, but I would say it is like, um, I always have this discussion with my wife. My wife says, you like something and she cooks me that, and I say that, how would I know if I like something or not unless until I taste it? Maybe you might actually cook something new, try something new. Maybe I like it. So she kind of, I say, I like something and she kind of cooks the same stuff, which means she's helping me in a way to make sure that I eat what I like, which is good. Like, I truly appreciate that fact. And point is, I'm not nitpicky. The point here is, uh, I don't know if I taste that. Maybe if she tries something new and if I taste that, I might actually like it,
Hmm.
and maybe that becomes my top one, two, three list of eating it.
Hmm.
So that's the same case. It's the same case for everyone in technology. Also, I don't know whether it really helps me or not. And I always feel like any company who actually, it doesn't matter. It's like releases a ton of new products. I love them. The reason is, previously they used to one, two, three, four products, which people either, there's a lot of time whether every company comes with a product, and if that is not working, the company is bankrupt. So today, if you look at the span of products and releases which are happening are like tons,
Correct.
and it's like nerve wracking to sometimes for people in this field like you and me. It's very hard to follow what is happening, and how many new services are coming out. And everyone expects that, hey, you are in Elasticsearch, yeah, I think you know this, but you'll be like, I know about Elasticsearch, but I think I don't know this feature, I still need to learn about it. It's quite
Exactly.
new. It's not like Elasticsearch actually runs based on my decisions. There are some things which I still need to learn. So this
Correct.
is where the things becomes interesting for people like in delivery, for anyone to that matter in technology. This where we strike this balance, how we
Hmm.
strike this balance. And uh, I mean, sometimes it's, I would call, gut feeling, where we say, hey, this will really resonate with what customer. Sometimes it's all about getting a lot of data, doing a lot of EAPs, understanding customer requirements, and then building a product.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. Like personally, if you ask me at this point in time, I say something in between these two. I don't know which is right. Too many feature requests from a customer and you build and you passionately build on that. I don't know customer will use it or not. Only
Hmm.
maybe you are actually talking to a subset of customers in the world who really want it, whereas other world customers don't even need.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
like there are 100 languages, but still C++ is still active, and then you have still a community around it. And I
Hmm.
heard that SpaceX still uses C++. That was recently, I think,
Yeah.
some in AMA Reddit or somewhere they talked about. So I was like surprised. Okay, there are 100 different programming languages, but what make you to choose C++?
Yeah, I mean, like there are always like choices and things like clay that you can mold it to your shape. And if you have I mean, I shouldn't say lucky because being a science graduate, but still, but if you're really lucky and enough to get the correct engineer who knows how to really build and who does stuff in perfect packing, then I think you will be surprised to see that okay, this can perform like this. At the same time, like you mentioned, that everything can't be known to everyone, and we might be having a bit of knowledge, but also having a big picture view about things. I mean, yeah, that's a great way to look at things as well.
I would say don't procrastinate anything on, like just do it. It's like you don't know. I mean, with not blindly, with sufficient data, which is you should have a threshold to it. It's not like you forever collect the data. I can actually say 10 years I collected the data, I didn't do anything with that. Doesn't make any sense. So put
Hmm.
up short sprints, collect data as much as possible, and without bias, which means you need to collect data from different variety of audience, different variety of customers, different sizes of customers, that include startups also, and to enterprise. Listen to everyone and just do what's right. Like don't really say I did it because some customer needs it. That doesn't work.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. Interesting, Casey. I think like we have discussed quite a bit about different topics, your experience, cloud, and application architectures, your learnings in this area, and like how pre-sales work. It's a great discussion. I think like we are on the clock already, and then I mean, thank you for joining from New York. I think I mean like the situation is really difficult, and it's a unique situation world in the world, and thanks for making time on a Sunday morning, especially waking up early and like doing this for us. Thank you, and I look forward to interact more of these avenues. And like again, thank you for doing this. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Arvind. Stay safe and stay healthy. That's more important.
Thank
And
you.
stay away from everyone. so,
Yeah. So,
uh, so see you. Thanks, Arvind. Thanks for the opportunity.